Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gorecom, in which we take the time to speak to small cap executives after they put out big news. And today's news is big. I'm going to give you 837 million reasons to love it. We're going to be talking to Mark Appleby, President and CEO of Tartisan Nickel, trades in Canada under TN for French in the US, under TTSRF. Look, you can already tell from the name what the company does if you're new to the story. A little background on why it's so important. As the world looks to add electric vehicles to the world to reduce air pollution, demands for battery metals are just going through the roof. Nickel is one of those battery metals that's in demand, and there are few new high-quality development projects ready to meet this demand, and none that just released a PEA demonstrating underground production potential with revenue potential of $837 million like Tartisan Nickel over the life of the mine. We're going to talk about those numbers. Look, we know on EV sales, they've just doubled year over year in 2021 to 6.6 million. There are now 16.5 million electric vehicles on the road worldwide. That's 3 times more than 2018. And we know that by 2030, the US government, the Biden administration, wants 50% of all cars sold to be electric vehicles. There's no doubt about where this industry is going. Tartisan has an advanced nickel project that's destined to be in production to help meet the demand of that electrical vehicle revolution. How they own 100% of the Cambridge nickel deposit that's got a measured indicated resource of 7.5 million tons of nickel and for a total, and copper, by the way, for a total of 95 million pounds of contained nickel. They've also got inferred mineral resources that could add 22 million pounds of contained nickel on top of that. What we're talking about today, the company announced a PEA, preliminary economic assessment, where the numbers came back unbelievable. Let's talk about it. Mark, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me, George. Pleasure to be on today.
Hey, pleasure to have you on. I mean, let's look at some of these numbers. 9-year mine life, 9-year mine plan, based on 1,500 tons per day, revenues estimated 840 mil. I'm just rounding up. All-in sustaining costs below $5 nickel, and on, which results in about 52.6 million pounds of payable nickel and 31 million pounds of payable copper. How do you, before we go into the numbers, how do you feel about this, and how should the shareholders feel about this?
Well, I think we're pretty ecstatic about what's going on here. This has been a long time coming through some challenging times, but here we are in a 2022 world with a positive economic assessment and a go-forward strategy to build an underground mine, to potentially vertically integrate, and to become a part of the North American supply chain.
And a lot of companies say that. They talk the talk, but you guys are walking the walk. Again, before we get into numbers, I want to ask you one more question. How important is to have this PEA versus George's Nickelcom that says they're looking for nickel, and we don't know, how big of a differentiator is to have this PEA?
Well, I think it makes all the difference in the world. There's all kinds of folks that have been waiting for us to publish this PEA. There's major companies, whether they're mining companies, auto manufacturers, battery manufacturers, all are looking to get through the nuts and bolts of numbers and grind down to see how much meat is on the bone here. And, we essentially have brought forward a de-risking strategy at Tartisan to allow investors to get the fact that, we've been mitigating risk since the get-go here with updating all the various studies, whether it's the mineral resource estimate, the PEA, doing various studies, drilling, expanding the resource, getting road work done. We're ticking all the necessary boxes in the Ontario permitting scene to allow people to make a decision here to invest or not invest. But it's exciting for us in the sense that, there's so much meat on the bone here with a net asset value of 186 million, pre-tax 110 odd million after that. There's definitely the ability for us to have an increasing share capital.
Let's talk about that meat on the bone. There's some So many great numbers in here. Each one of them almost better than the other. You're the CEO. You tell us which one of those truly stood out for you, grabbed your attention, and should grab the attention of shareholders. Which ones you most excited about?
Well, I think for starters, there is a rate of return that's 20+% using current economic conditions. So what does that mean? Well, okay, on the cost side, it's in this inflationary world. The cost of mining, all the rest of it is built in to this scenario. And, as of July 2022. So this isn't a historical look backwards. And it's also using current metal prices, whether that's, $10 nickel, $4 copper, $26 cobalt, $78 US Canada exchange rate. It allows people in sort of real time to know that this project actually makes money in an underground mining situation. And that's all the difference in the world. I mean, the metallurgy that has been done by Xstrata historically, the recovery rates, a lot of boxes have been ticked for this project. And I think, people will be able to as they get into the whole Tartisan story for the first timers and those that have been following us. I mean, we've been trying to put our money where our mouth is. We've been, as investors, directors and such, we've all managed to keep a position here and then build on a position because we believe in the end game. And this PEA is, a big part of that end game, understanding that what we have through academia, shall we say, is holds together through a third-party valuation.
Some things that, one thing that's hidden in here, enormous value that I think you've got an existing shaft to a depth of just over 2,000 feet. How valuable is that? Because the capex of the mine, is about 100 pre-production, about $130 million. How valuable is it to have that existing shaft down to 2,000 feet? How much money does that take off the capex there?
Well, I think to recreate that today is definitely sort of in the $70 million range.
Wow.
Never mind, it's already in place. It has been scoped. It's in relatively decent shape. So, it would have to be dewatered, obviously, and some rehabilitation to be done. But, it's another tool. It's another box that's been ticked here for the benefit of shareholders to utilize. Another reason for, compelling reason, I think, for people to have a hard look at the company.
So with all these figures out, you kind of touched on earlier, the industry in terms of strategics, industry in terms of automotive. Is it fair to say, and I know you can't disclose much, but in terms of specifics, but is it fair to say that once these numbers came out or before they came out, your phone has been ringing either through strategics or the automotive industry or both?
Definitely. I mean, we've had multiple Zoom calls, as you can imagine, over the past couple of years. We've also had folks that have indicated, expressions of interest, shall we say, on what, if we put up X amount of money, what would that get us within that Kenbridge project? And these are folks that are interested in sort of vertical integration, in need of nickel sulfide and copper. So it's been interesting for us now with the numbers that come out that, people are now able to put more pen to paper. I know there's certainly numerous follow-up calls that are being taken place.
Nice.
Today was a multitude of Zoom calls, and it's becoming very exciting in the sense that there's a little more urgency now. And as we walk towards this pre-feas and feasibility study, I think in 2022, that'll even more sort of help to catapult the realization that Tartisan can actually become a part of the supply chain, this decade, never mind in, 5 years or less type of thing.
So is that the next step, the pre-feasibility study? What should we look for? We're in the middle of July now. So what does the rest of 2022 look like?
Yeah, so, we're busy as can be here and have been since the early spring. Put up a few new structures on site to allow us to do all season work at that camp. Baseline studies commenced this spring. So we did manage to capture the spring runoff season, and this is all part and parcel of the permitting process. So we're now sort of officially have activated the whole relook and commencing the permitting of Kenbridge. We've also begun the construction of converting what we can call basically a bush road and a rough bush road at that into an all-season access road. So, that includes the very basics of, ditching and graveling and culverting and all those other things to allow, say, a fuel truck to drive directly into site. And that, there's a big difference there between fly in, fly out, and being able to take a larger, heavier vehicle right to site with those supplies and
Especially
things that they
today.
need. Yeah. So those are significant boxes that have been ticked and are being ticked. That road, by the way, will be ready around Labor Day this year in 2022. And with a summer drill program planned, we want to do is continue to look at the down dip extension at Kenbridge. We think it goes significantly deeper. We have a heavy drill lined up to test those down dip extensions and to see whether obviously whether the mineralization increases at depth. We do have some pretty compelling grades at depth of 4%, 3% historically. And now we want to go past 1,200 meters, 1,400 meters, 1,500 meters to see.
And
whether
that's just
this thing
all
opens
gravy,
up.
right, Mark? I mean, it's not like you need it. It'd be great. You guys have an idea that you think you might have something there, but that would be just all gravy, just add on top of all this, right?
Yeah, you don't need a lot of massive sulfide in order to obviously increase the end economics of the play. Certainly, the greater the tonnage we get, we increase the mine life. So, and that's kind of the name of the game here. So, if the nickel price, in fact, moved from sort of this $10 range towards $14, which I think it has the ability to do, that allows us to expand the feed into this mill as well. So there's other tonnage that has not been utilized in the process of this PEA that we could then turn up the dial on in the Tartisan sense to bring that feedstock into the mill and ramp up the economics of all of this.
And you're giving me more confidence when I was looking at the numbers. And by the way, I'm not an expert in mining economics, but just, looking at, tertiary. What's nice about your situation is, going back to what we're talking earlier, you may be having calls with strategics, both in the industry and on the automotive side, but it's not as if you have to get something done with them. You could go it alone, it seems like, and go all the way to production, correct? You're not, some companies just, Georgecom Nickel, runs into a problem because we need $700 million of CapEx. And there's no way to get that done on our own. But it seems like you guys are in a really good position where you can go either way.
Yeah, and I think we're sort of building out for the production scenario on a go-it-alone basis. But I think, just given the phone calls that have occurred, I would think that there would be definitely some strategic interest in our play in Northwestern Ontario. And again, near-term production. So, we're gonna play it as it comes. I mean, we're not taking anything for granted. In the meantime, we continue to de-risk. We continue to work hard at what we're doing here, trying to add value for shareholders and make this thing happen. Again, it's just been such a journey, even in the last 3-4 years, with just general acceptability of electric vehicles. Whether
we've turned that corner now. We're all in. Listen, the world is all in there.
Yeah, whether you're in the, whether you're on the electric highway in Canada, whether, there's charging stations are certainly more plentiful where I am now in sort of more rural Ontario. But I mean, in the GTA, for example, there's lots of build outs that are occurring and building codes now essentially demanding EV chargers in every home. So it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of how quickly the ramp up occurs. And I think certainly in Europe, there's great acceleration into EVs and there's a demand. And I think general acceptability in North America, I mean, we're starting to get into hockey stick territory where, more electric vehicles are coming online and the ability to have greater kilometer greater kilometers per charge is there now too. So price points are coming down, range is increasing. It's again, greater acceptability and the need for battery metals. So,
and how serendipitous has it been? On the one hand, yeah, you may, like all companies on this planet, even my pool guys having supply chain issues with getting liquid chlorine. You're not immune to that, so I'm sure you got some slight issues. But I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but has it been a bigger payoff for Tartisan because the value, the premium that's now put on, I want my supply coming out of Ontario or Quebec, and I don't want to have to rely on it come from overseas somewhere where I may not be able to have a constant supply because we don't know when the global supply chain has that. You think that's something in addition that's played into Tartisan's favor here?
yeah, I think so. I mean, we're definitely very close to a rail yard. It's not like this needs to be shipped overly far. The economics have changed even to get concentrates into Sudbury. There are mills south of the border, but I think really with access being complete in the near term at Tartisan, well, then there's a big difference right there where, you're very close to the Trans-Canada Highway and off we go. So, again, a company that's de-risking constantly here, trying to figure out better ways to do things. Everyone talks about greenhouse gases. Well, there's more than one way to electrify Tartisan without having to put in 40 kilometers of transmission lines. And, there is compressed natural gas. There is the ability to do this in solar. And those are two aspects that are being heavily looked at now, and the potential for partnership with First Nations as well. So that opens up the whole avenue towards federal assistance and helping in the electrification process of this, and trying to keep obviously our carbon footprint to a minimum. So these are all good pluses.
No, and by the way, just going to add in, and the Ontario government, Ford, when he in his acceptance speech when he won the election just a month ago, made it very clear that this next 4 years are going to be very supportive of these kind of projects and electric vehicles and manufacturing the vehicles in Ontario, sourcing the critical metals here in Ontario. So it just seems so serendipitous. And what I want to say to everybody, because there are a lot of new people probably watching who don't know you and Tartisan up till they saw these numbers. I want to give your team credit because, when you guys were on this quite a while ago, you stayed with nickel because you believed in where you're going. You stayed with Kenbridge and, not just the nickel, but everything else. You didn't succumb to the temptation of Tartisan blockchain, Tartisan cannabis, when you could have, right? Because those were booming and people didn't want to talk about nickel. But here you are today, the overnight, 10-year success story?
Well, yeah, the overnight 10-year success when we did the deal, nickel was $4 or slightly thereunder. And I mean, you can see we're nickel at sort of 975, 10 today. And I mean, wasn't too long ago before it was, there was through 20 when the short squeeze. But, we look at the PEA as sort of the launching pad here now where we can more aggressively go in and have some higher level meetings and really start to push here to bring this towards a production scenario.
Mark, congratulations to you and the guys. We could talk about this for another hour, but I figure you probably have more important Zoom calls to make. Not that this one isn't really important because the shareholders will be ecstatic to hear from you. I like the fact that you've laid low until the PEA came out, and then here you are, and can't wait to have you back. But for today, I think I speak on behalf of all shareholders. Say congratulations to you, the team, for bringing the company to this point, de-risking it, getting into a really advantageous position, and can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next 6, 12, 24 months, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, George. Pleasure having spoken with you today, and look forward to our next update.
To everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Mark Appleby, he's President and CEO of Tartisan Nickel, trades in Canada on the stock symbol TN. For our friends in the US, on the stock symbol TTSRF. For those new to the story and you want to start some due diligence, 2 ways to do that. First, get to the company's profile page on Agoracom, because we know there's a lot. Not all of you, in fact, very few of you are going to be geologists. So we try and give you a great layman's overview of Kenbridge, the economics, all the news today, so you can understand it. And then once you got that foundational knowledge, head right over to the Tartisan website, do your deep dive due diligence. And hopefully today you discovered your next amazing, critical elements EV revolution company. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.